Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. Welcome to our show. Whether you're watching us live or if you're listening to a podcast or even if you're watching the video program later on, we're really happy that you chose to be in the audience today.
Yeah.
We care about everything you have to say, and we do want your comments, and we would love it if you would share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, I want to remind you that this is a pre-recorded program, and you can still comment, and we can comment if we happen to be
Sometimes we monitor them if
there.
we're in
Yeah,
the right
if we
spot.
can,
We'll
if
be
we're in a place,
we'll be traveling.
And if we're in a place where we can actually have internet where we can get on, we will.
Yeah, there will be a book giveaway during this show, and during the live show at 7:00. That's our, that you're watching right now. If you're watching a day or so later, go ahead and enter the book giveaway. Sometimes there's extra books to be given away.
Or even the podcast. If
Yeah.
you're listening to
Or
the
listening to
podcast,
the
go
podcast.
ahead and shoot out an email to our guest.
I want to tell you what's coming up. Remind you about the Voice of Indie podcast on blogtalkradio.com with hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gary G's. That's every Wednesday right after this show.
Yep.
And pop on over to blogtalkradio.com. Episode Rewind this Saturday, 5:30 p.m., October 15th. It's episode 46. It's a replay of our first anniversary show. There was five authors: George Dismukes, Caleb and Linda Pirtle, Orlando Sanchez, and Paul Hollis, who all joined us, and we had a great time.
It was a great show. It was.
So
I'm going to rewatch that.
Yeah, me too. It was a lot of fun. And then next Wednesday, 7:00 Eastern time, right here where you're watching, and episode Rewind, watch that right where you're at right now, where you're watching this. You'll see it if you're watching live now. At 7:00 next Wednesday, which is October 19th, we'll have award-winning romance and inspirational author Aiken Chang Lim. And she's got a lot to talk about with her. She's got quite a few books to talk about.
And so does our author tonight.
Yes. So without much ado,
let's introduce Princess AMEENAH.
Come on in. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We're really good. We're glad that you're on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
How are things in Philadelphia today? A little hot?
It's hot. Yes, indeed. But it's been hotter. It was hotter a few days ago. It's still Philadelphia.
There you go. Well, the audience will be watching this in October, so it's probably going to be kind of cool.
Probably going to be cooler.
Degrees then, yeah.
At that point, right?
It won't be any cooler in Tampa, probably. We'll probably still be hot.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
So, AMEENAH, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Princess AMEENAH, and I have been designing educational products since 1993. I am an educator, sister, friend, aunt, niece, daughter. I have so many roles in life for which I am grateful. I have a Master of Science in Restorative Practices in Education, and I'm the founder of a company called Developing Excellence. I work for an education institution as an occupational therapist, and I have certifications in teaching drama and handwriting. I mentioned this because I want you all to recognize me as a lifelong learner.
There you go.
That's basically what I love, learning things, and I enjoy reading.
Pressing onward, right?
Yes, indeed.
I like learning things too. I like researching too.
Yeah, it's amazing what a little research and reading can
Yeah,
do.
right? You can research things and learn things, and we can
Mhm.
all learn things from each other.
Yep.
And I mean, we're in our 70s and we learn things from little people, and I don't mean little people, I mean young people, little
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
You can learn from everyone.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Right.
a whole new way of learning. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book that we're going to talk about, is because I know that the strategies and methods for teaching and learning are so different and so vulnerable and fragile, because they can be changed and at the click of a button.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to bring that book up now? Are we talking about Womanizer and the Gentleman?
Yes, that's the book that I wrote as a result of interacting with the new generation, with millennials. Um, I noticed that when you ask a lot of young people about Dr. King, they say something different from what my generation said. They,
Really?
yes, indeed, it's a totally different perspective. And I went to this event at a church in Philadelphia, and actually that was in 2015. And we were off, schools closed, Martin Luther King Day. Some people say it's a day of service. Well, I don't perceive it that way, because I'm in my head, we as African Americans gave enough service. I don't think that Dr. King's legacy is about service. I So I went to this um, event and I was hyped. I was off. I wanted something positive. And when I got there, the presenting panel was a panel of educated millennials. And when they left, I was frustrated. I said, they don't know anything about Dr. King. They don't know who he was. They don't know. They haven't read any books by him. I knew that. And one person in particular got up and said, well, I was asked to be a part of this panel, and I don't particularly like Dr. King because he was a womanizer. And I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
one, why are you on the panel? Two, how do you know? And so that was the turning point for me, because this was being said to a whole lot of people. Nobody protested, contested, and I came home and I'm like, well, dang, am I crazy? I started reflecting on what I knew about Dr. King. And, so I asked a couple people, I asked my family members that are young, I started asking them about Dr. King. What do you know about Dr. King? And one of them said the same thing. Well, I heard he had a lot of women. And I heard it, and I said, okay, I have to research this. I have to figure this out, because when you research, when you put in Google, sometimes that was coming up. I guess because the most Dr. King was a woman, womanizer, Dr. King had affairs and all this. It'll say things like that. So I started researching, because one thing I know, if I don't know anything else, when he was killed in 1968, I was 8. And for me, everything about Dr. King and the United States of America is mixed. Before every assembly, we sang, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? And at the end, and the land of the free and the home of the brave. So in my head, I'm like, this was before Dr. King assemblies and everything at the my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, from every mountainside let free. All this is mixed in. As for me, as a child, 8 years old, 6, 7, 8, even before. So the history of the United States and the legacy of Dr. King for me are like synonymous. So I found it hard to believe that I grew up seeing him as a freedom fighter, as a person that fought for justice and that wrote these magnificent speeches. And
Yes.
he was a womanizer. how did I miss that? And how come here I am, like, actually it started to grow around 2006, mostly after Coretta Scott King passed away. That was the first I heard of him being a woman. All these years, I never heard anything about him being a womanizer until I became an adult with children and a grandchild. So now all of a sudden I'm hearing this. And so I'm saying that to say that the legacy is started to shift and change. And as I read about J. Edgar Hoover, and I started getting more and more into what was happening, because I'm like, if he was a womanizer, how come they didn't tell us back then? Where was this information? Why is it coming out now, like in the millennial generation? You know, it's and then and then I looked at Dick Gregory's speeches. I started really researching. I started looking at the Black Panther speeches, the Martin Malcolm X, and I got a photo book from the library has been instrumental in my research. I looked at pictures. There's some beautiful pictures by a whole photo biography of Dr. King. I went through each picture, and I never see him with any women. I think he was very careful to interact mostly with men, because I see him with Elijah Muhammad. I see him with, important male figures. I didn't see him with women, So when I said, well, let me think. I even read Ralph Abernathy's book, The Walls Came Tumbling Down, because it was said, oh, and there, Abernathy says that he had an affair. I went through Abernathy's book and I read, and he didn't really say that. Not exactly. He basically said women were attracted to him. That's not the same thing. It's not, that doesn't mean that he was a womanizer, because women are attracted to him and go, oh, is there anything I can do? Can you come speak at my church? Any help? I'm a woman, so I know I'm looking at Dr. King, and he has a PhD. He's brilliant. He's intelligent. He's focused. He's handsome. And I'm like, I could see how women would see him. But I said, let me dig a little further. I read Coretta Scott King's book. And Coretta Scott King talked about her life with Dr. King and before. So I looked at who she was. This is the woman he married. He met her. They met in college. And when he met her, he told her he was looking for a wife. And he said she had the qualities that he wanted in a wife. She was intelligent, and she had a great personality, and he said she was beautiful. Coretta's gonna make you know she is beautiful, because she was beautiful, educated. She had her master's in music, so she was, educated too. So she attended college. She was one of the first Blacks to attend Antioch College. Then she went to the New England Conservatory of Music. And that's when she had to give up her life, her role, her endeavors to pursue singing as an opera singer, or she was classical singing. And she started teaching, because it was more becoming the wife of a minister. So she said when Dr. King came home, she made sure that home was quiet. He was very busy. So her role was to create a good home. And they made that clear from the beginning. She said they talked all the time, even though people might not have thought so. So I read about what she was said. And reading that, I never got any impression that she was aware of any extramarital affairs, or that she would even accept it. That's just not who she was. If you look at the man's woman, it can tell you a lot about the man. She wasn't that, oh, as long as I'm number one, I don't care. As long as you treat me this way. Coretta, that was not Coretta, at all. So then I looked at the books that he wrote. And at that time I hadn't read any books by Dr. King either.
Well, you told us in the pre-show that most people that you talk to don't even know that he has written any books.
That he's an author
right?
in his own right.
And that is what I found so amazing about my research, because we all know about the historic "I Have a Dream" speech. We all know most people, that's all they can name. And another person said, I know about Letter from a Birmingham jail. We all knew about those two pieces. And then I look and I see he wrote like 10 books. He's written a lot.
Big books. They weren't just short.
Yeah, not little
short stories.
They were
right. I'm talking about intellectual property that is intriguing, challenging, and that will make you. He even started as addressing students when he started organizing nonviolent protests in the colleges. So this was one. And then you got Stride Toward Freedom. But there's a book he wrote called Strength to Love. And the reason why I sought that book out was because Coretta Scott King said, if you really want to know Dr. King, she said, then you have to read Strength to Love. She said, if you read this book, it'll tell you a lot about what was important to him, how he saw families, how he saw the community, how he saw racism, how he felt about war. And I'm sitting here looking at all these books he wrote, including this one, Why We Can't Wait. Then he was killed when he was 39. What I want to know, when this does broadcast live, anybody in this chat that's 39, maybe they should say something, somebody 39. And if anybody has written even 4 books by the age of 39 that are considered intellectual property that is on the level of teaching at universities. And in all his books, all he talks about is the Negro. The Negro doesn't have access to economic, resources. The Negro is every book is the Negro. That's what he focused on. And, so then the rumors about the womanizing for me didn't fit, because each and every book, he even talks against infidelity, and talk and how important it is to have a woman in his life, a woman, because too many women would complicate your life. And if he were to be a womanizer, that would be a way for the FBI to trap him. If they know that they could plant people, they could send women. He was no fool, and I don't think that was his interest. I think his interest was sincerely in Negro rights and fighting against war.
Yeah, I think his interest was educating people too.
Right.
I think
absolutely
educating all people. I mean, because a lot of people back then, when let's go back to the I Have a Dream speech, I think a lot of people didn't understand, hadn't been educated about exactly what was going on. And he was such a teacher, such a speaker, such a powerful speaker, that when you heard him speak, you weren't quick to forget what he said.
Exactly. I went to my son's graduation from Temple University in 2019, and there's a panel of speakers at the graduation. I kid you not. I think that the universe gives you what you need to figure out what you should be doing. So there was a panel of probably about 9 people. 7 of them started their presentations off with, I want to start with a quote from the great scholar, Dr. Martin Luther King, because he was all about education and the things that he said, they were quoting him. And then I Googled it, and this is something I do trust that is a fact. They say he is the most quoted scholar.
I believe it. I believe
that. Some things, So, and then again, it all comes back to, where was this womanizing information before 2000?
Right.
That's so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
That is really fascinating.
It's
And that people, that people speaking on Martin Luther King Day would talk about him like that in a church setting. In a church setting is very disturbing. Why do you know what? We were talking in the pre-show about research. Do a little research, people. read actual books, not what Wikipedia says. You know.
Thank you. That is the truth.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a presentation, you should research. And
I love research. You learn things.
Mm-hmm. And I asked another person that's do you think that Dr. King was a womanizer? And this is a person, and she said, I don't think he was a womanizer, but I think he had affairs. I said, why do you say that? She said, because he was away from his wife so much. I'm like, that's not a reason. Because he was away from his wife so much, it's like that is not a factor in womanizing. There are clear delineations between a womanizer and a gentleman. And that's what I talk about in my book. By the time you read the book, you should be able to decipher what a womanizer is and what a gentleman is. And before I say anything else about that, I read Tavis Smiley's book, Death of a King. I'm glad I read it after my book was published. And I also read, what is the lady's name? I Share the Dream. I read, anything that would help me to have clarity, because that was important for me, was clarity. It's like you grow up all of a sudden and somebody says, that's not your mother, that's your, or something. It was that intricate for me, when people started saying the womanizing. But I feel good about the research, and I feel confident enough to say he could not have been a womanizer. If he were a womanizer, is a man that seeks sexual encounters with women.
Yeah.
In doing this, he will lie. He will isolate the woman, try to get her alone. He stated he was trying to get women away from him. He didn't, that's a clear thing. And lying, he how some men lie. They'll tell you anything, like they're not married when they really are, or that they love you when they really just like you. And it's all for them. It's all about just, getting intimacy, just getting sex. And that's what a womanizer is, a man that does that seeks women out for sex. He didn't have a chance to even do that. The women.
Yeah, it seems to me he was such a powerful voice in the civil rights movement itself in the United States, for the whole country, that if he had slipped even once,
everybody would have been on it like wet on rice.
No kidding. I mean, it would have been a way to take him down. There's a force that didn't want that to happen.
There were plenty of people that wanted to take him down.
That's right.
They would have said that. I understand now, and I just had a eureka moment about why the title is Womanizer and the Gentleman.
Right. And
not the womanizer and the gentleman.
Right.
It's womanizer, somebody else,
right.
and the gentleman.
Versus,
and the gentleman is
like
Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And
right.
let's not forget that he earned his doctorate. All right.
Yeah, he was young, about 24. He started college when he was 15 years old. His first year, he didn't do well. Then he started realizing why other students were ahead of him, because of the resources, the education and economic resources that, he lacked and they didn't have. So, that's how his focus from the very beginning, even as a child, his father was the pastor in the church. He was groomed to be a pastor, and then for somebody to write all these books, for me, that alone says where his head was.
Yeah.
And where would he have found the time to womanize? All of you authors that are listening know what we're talking about.
In writing a book, especially a big one.
And if you look at the Martin Luther King Jr. Library and see the list of books, and there are more even being edited that will be published, you'll realize in that short amount of time, never mind everything else he was doing, all the marches and
traveling
people.
He was traveling, speaking engagements, and people wanted him. And he tried to sometimes send Ralph Abernathy or Jesse Jackson. He tried, but people wanted him. They would do whatever they could to talk to him to get, and he was trying to keep people at bay. He wasn't out there looking, oh, look at that one, that chick in a fine red dress or fine blue.
Yeah.
It just wasn't like that.
I'm so glad that this is your perspective, because
too.
when I first read your the title of your book, like I said, I just now during the show had my eureka moment. I was concerned, but I was willing to hear because I knew you had researched thoroughly, and you don't want to deify someone. You don't want to make them God. You don't want to demonize them either. You know, you want to look at who the man actually is, you know.
Absolutely.
But for me, I think that I had Dr. Martin Luther King up on a pedestal. He's one of my personal heroes. I think he was a brilliant mind, and he was a very persuasive speaker. But above all of that, he was anointed to do what he came to do, and he spoke it that way. And when you heard him, you knew that he was speaking the truth, and you rose up. He brought people to rise up, and you heard what he had to say. You know what I mean? So I was a little nervous, but I wanted to hear. And now I'm like.
So we need to take a short break.
Yeah.
Our first break. We'll continue this as soon as we get back. Nobody go away. We'll have a book giveaway coming up as well.
Be right back.
They thought the siren was dead. In the novel Siren Song by author George Dismukes, James Harmon shot her twice. Several people saw her dead body sinking slowly into the abyss. But now, in Siren Song 2, evidence suggests that she may still be alive.
She killed that boatload of people. It was her! And she's just getting started!
Angie, that's impossible.
The cold chill up my spine tells me it's not impossible. We've got to start all over again. And this time, do it right.
Siren Song 2. The story continues. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Get your copy today.
At Indie Booksource, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today.
In a world where advancing technology is outpacing crime solving, the O'Rourke team continues their relentless pursuit of justice. Bioprints is the first book in the O'Rourke crime novel series where it's high-tech crime versus old-fashioned detective work. Visit carternovels.com or amazon.com and check out Bioprints today. And we're back.
We're back.
Hello.
I went to get my glasses.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
See a thing.
We didn't carry on without you. Don't worry.
Well, that was emotional for me.
Her being gone or the conversation?
No, the conversation.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I had said I'm not going to cry again, but
so we can revisit the subject after we talk about a few other things. You are a poet, I understand.
Right. Yeah. That's my passion.
Okay.
Here we have Tiger Eyes and Leopard Prints. Here's one book that Princess AMEENAH has written. You want to tell us a little bit about what type of poetry is in that particular book, AMEENAH?
Tiger Eyes and Leopard Prints is basically a fun poetry. It starts off, maybe I can just read the first poem.
Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
We'd love that.
The first poem is called Tiger Eyes. If you want to look smart, sometimes be quiet. Don't tell stories that sound like thoughtless lies or cry and sing lullabies. just because they sound melodic and sweet. It is better to reflect and stare. Open your eyes. No need for despair. Your chance to speak will be here. It comes sooner than you think. If we ponder the things we say, what we portray could be in sync with a different day, and we might wait to speak them some other time, some other place, some other way. Tiger eyes, intense and wise, utilizing the art of being smart. It's Tiger Eyes and the Prince. Tiger Eyes.
That's wonderful.
Nice.
Yes.
How many poems? Is a collection of poems?
It's a small collection. At some of the events, I'm part of the Black Authors Tour. I want to give a shout out to them and Dr. Maurice Henderson. He's the one that encouraged me to write these little small books that I can sell at events for, somewhere between like around $5 or $10. And they also gave me an award for womanizing the gentleman.
Ooh,
So I'm
really
happy about that. The National Black Authors Tour Book Award 2021.
That's wonderful.
Very
and it's
good.
great that you're educating people as to who Dr. Martin Luther King was, because I think people my age saw him for who he was,
Right.
not
Exactly.
you never even in your mind would you ever associate womanizer with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Not at all. First, I know that's what had me puzzled. Like, how did we miss that?
Yeah, I'm going to start asking some younger people and find out, how far that's spread.
Right. Exactly.
I would like to know.
All they know, I think, probably is that there's a Martin Luther King Day and they don't have to go to school.
Hey, I like that. I like that it's a national holiday. For Coretta Scott King, she spent a lot of time. Look, Dr. Reagan would not have given her that holiday if there were any indications, any inclination that he didn't deserve it.
No.
And that's why Dick Gregory was one of the main people. I was inspired by a lot of what he had to say. He's the one that said, if they got anything, why don't they show it? Because they ain't got it. He said, you think they're going to tell you we're going to show you later? No. Like, that common sense.
When would he have had the time anyway?
He did. That's what I said. There was no time.
And if you ever, like you said, when you would watch him, when you would see him on all the many marches that he did in public speaking, he was surrounded by the same group of men. He traveled with
It was always men. I looked for the women, there were none. Like, what was he doing? Winking on the side? Or it's impossible. And from what I see, I don't see that it is something that we need to, even be concerned about. I think that we can, especially us that grew up in the 60s, we can rest assured that if there were any reasons why he shouldn't have a holiday, he shouldn't have a Nobel Peace Prize, come on now. Before
the age of 39, by the way, and wrote all those books before the age of 39, because once he was 39, he was gone. He was
gone.
Too soon.
Too soon.
So he had to write everything between the age of 15 and 39, and his book, and do college.
And all the sermons.
And the sermons. He wrote his sermon, and that's what I Shrunk to Love. Really, when I read that, I was like, no, he's not. He wasn't a woman. But I thought that all along. I didn't think that we would all be so deceived for all these years. But I think that, and I spoke with my sons, they're millennials. They proofread my book too. They're my editors and stuff like that as well. And they said that they were glad that I wrote this and that they think it's an important topic that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
And I got so mad. In my book, in Womanizing a Gentleman, in the beginning, there's a poem, and it's called The Stripes That Broke My Heart. I'm a person, I've always liked school. You know how people say they don't like school and they glad it's closed and all that. I've always liked school. I like the school setting. I like the environment. I like the books. I like going up and down. The high ceilings were a big contrast to where I grew up in Richard Allen Projects. And we had a piano. We used to sing. Kindergarten was amazing. And that was first grade. All those, the more we learned, and every assembly I was there, I would be in a lot of them. And we sang the Star Spangled Banner and America the Beautiful and My Country 'Tis of Thee. I love those songs. And I felt betrayed when I found out that the Francis Scott Key song had racist lyrics in it, the Star Spangled Banner. And I didn't find that out until much later in life as well. So
you just taught me something new, because that has to be in stanzas that I've never heard. That's
it is.
That's not good.
It's in like that song has a lot of stanzas.
Yes, and I don't know, and I've not read them all.
I only know the first one. That's the one they taught us in school. I played it on the bells. I was in the choir. The band in school on the cello. We would play it. We would sing it. So I never knew that it was racist, but it didn't. When I found out, I felt like you. I never knew. So in Womanizing a Gentleman, the very opening, I have a poem called "The Stripes That Broke My Heart," and I call it that because I'm making a reference and a parody out of the Star Spangled Banner, because I like the song, and if these lyrics can be sung to the same melody. I actually like the melody. For the land of the free and home of the brave, we'd be out there, and we liked the song when we were children. So that's one thing that I bring.
But the first stanza that we all sing, that's what you want, and that's the country we want, right? That's what we want.
The first one, and I still associate it
for everybody.
Exactly, it sounded it, but at the same time, I associated those lyrics with the work of still Dr. King. For the land of the free and the home of the brave, and the only African American historian we were learning about at that time was Martin Luther King. We had Negro History Week. It was one, and on that week, it would always be Martin Luther King. And when I got to a certain age, they said, for Black History Month, everybody's going to do a Black History project. This is the list of topics you cannot do. And they put Martin Luther King up there because everybody would pick him.
Yeah, because he was the hero.
That was the only one we knew.
But there were so many others, right?
We learned. At that time, we didn't know as many.
Since the beginning of our country.
Right. Exactly.
Look, and in the middle of our country, I think of the Buffalo Soldiers, and a lot of people don't know about that. The Tuskegee Airmen,
right?
Cotton Mather. There were a lot of scientists who were Black that did.
And as an educator, one of the things is so many we don't know about, and we didn't know about until later in life. So what I did in one of my books, in the book Straight from the Heart, the last poem in here, it says, "Thank God for our teachers." And that's straight from the heart. Can I read a poem from that?
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
I don't need my glasses. I might know this from by heart. Thank God for our teachers of Black pride and knowledge. For Black history, our race has been salvaged by women and men doing things so unique to uncover facts that have long been oblique. Thank you for pushing and working so hard to proclaim our strength and our move straight forward. Thank God for the legacies I love and respect. Honor, integrity, I will expect from myself. I'm grateful for knowledge wealth Black legends left us, inspiring to get us to rise to a state of wise in our own eyes. My name is Princess AMEENAH, and I'm paying homage to Maya Angelou, Billie Holiday, C.J. Walker, David Richardson, Elijah Muhammad, Fannie Lou Hamer, Marcus Garvey, Langston Hughes, Ida B. Wells, Jackie Robinson, Malana Karenga, Lorraine Hansberry, Martin Luther King, Nefertiti, Oprah Winfrey, Phyllis Wheatley, the Queen of Soul, Rosa Parks, Dr. Betty Shabazz, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad, Vincent Harding, Whitney Houston, Richard Wright, Malcolm X, Andrew Young, Dora Neale Hurston. Thank you for magnifying our legacy of greatness. That's basically it. And then I have a picture of my parents.
Very nice.
At the back of the book. But this poem, I use this, as I told you, I'm an educator. And I've been in situations and classes where I've been the only Black girl, the only Black person. In occupational therapy, I was the only Black in our graduating class. And establishing relationships with whites, one white girl came up to me and said, Angela, I've always wondered, I understand Black history and all, but what have Black people done? She said, other than Martin Luther King, she sounded like us, other than Martin Luther King. And so I told her about Garrett Morgan, Traffic Light. I told her about Dr. Daniel Hill Williams. I started talking. And then I said, I'll tell you some more tomorrow. And I came home and wrote this poem, and it has 26 Black names. Maya Angelou is my A. Billie Holiday is my B. C.J. Walker is my C. Then I got David Richardson, Elijah Muhammad, Fannie Lou Hammond. And that way, if that's an activity that I like to do with my drama group or with people that I work with that are able to accomplish something to this level, even if they only go through A, B, C, D. But it gives them a format. It gives them a way to remember who some of the heroes are. And this helps me a lot.
And I just want to say that, to quote a book that Dr. Martin Luther King quoted all the time, the truth will set you free.
Yes, indeed.
You talk about freedom, then the truth is going to set you free.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our next commercial.
Okay.
So we need to
But I
take a little
just
break.
want to say that Princess AMEENAH is speaking truth and
Absolutely.
you bring things into the light.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that has power.
Yeah.
I think.
It certainly does.
Okay.
Stand by, everybody.
We'll do our commercial. We'll be right back.
As soon as we come back, we're going to go over contacts for AMEENAH and also the book giveaway.
Yep.
So
don't go away. Come
by.
right back, people. I think we have a commercial coming
We're
up.
supposed to have a commercial. Come on, commercial.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
And we're back.
Hello.
Now, let me tell you how to get in touch with Princess AMEENAH. On LinkedIn, you can find her at Angela-Princess-AMEENAH, and that's ANGELA-PRINCESS-AMEENAH. On Facebook, you can find her at Angela.A.Hankins, ANGELA.A.HANKINS.
Sometimes it reads Angela AMEENAH Hankins. That's the clearest way that you'll see it on Facebook.
And remember that AMEENAH and Angela mean the same thing. I don't think we said that on the air, but
yes,
Angela educated us to that earlier. So,
right.
Yes, okay. The email is angela.ameenah.hankins@temple.edu. Okay.
Okay, and that brings us right to the book giveaway, because that's the address you need to send to win a copy. The first 3 people to email will win an ebook copy of Womanizer and the Gentleman, and get a chance to read all about it.
And profit from all of AMEENAH's
hard
research.
work and research. Yeah.
Right. And I hope that they communicate back with me, their thoughts about the book. And if you think it's worth a 5-star rating, put it on Amazon.
Absolutely. If you read a book,
yeah,
leave a review, please.
If there's not 5 stars, then email it to me. Tell me what, because I want to do better,
There's also, you're an educator, and you would like to educate people about Kwanzaa, right?
Yes. Now, Kwanzaa. Where did I put that book? Kwanzaa is an African-American holiday. Wait a minute. Let me just get the book. Oh, wait, this one has, I set books on top of the Kwanzaa book. I set all of Dr. King's books on top of the Kwanzaa book.
There
and
you
I
go.
didn't even fall. But yeah, the one you just had, Happy Kwanzaa, everybody. I am an occupational therapist. And in that profession, I've learned to take an activity and downgrade it or upgrade it so that it is challenging for kindergartners actually through 12th grade and higher through college. And that's what I did with this book. So this book is appropriate for adults and children. My son started doing the book when they were like 3. And it was amazing to me, that, and they continued to do a book every year, or at least to do certain pages every year, because it encourages you to reflect on what it is that you would like to do and what you did last year. We all set goals together. Like I remember, once somebody have said, well, next year I want to play in the city band, because they were playing in the school band. And then a year after that, it might have been next year I want to play in the state band. Next year I want to be teaching science at Temple. It's been that kind of a journey for all of us. Or next year I want to be guest poet in your Poetry for Your Mind group. We've all set goals. So this book encourages us to do that in a fun and interactive, non-threatening way. This is why a lot of students like it, because it's not like it's right or wrong answers necessarily, but you do need to, the beginning just tells you a little bit about Kwanzaa. And then there's a page in here that tells you to design a line of gifts, like for you to sell, what Kwanzaa means to you. And that actually changed. Some of the answers will change every year. The purpose of the book is to teach the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, the fact that there are 7 days, and the fact that there are 7 candles. Kwanzaa is spelled with 7 letters. So is AMEENAH. AMEENAH. So, and Kwanzaa was created in 1966.
I remember that by two professors. I'm thinking.
Dr. Malani Karenga is the brain behind,
Okay.
and maybe his wife Tia Moyo. But we had lost so many people, like you said, JFK. Dr. King, Malcolm X. We lost so many people. So Kwanzaa is empowering. It's a very empowering holiday, and I love the fact that it's at the end of the year, because I almost associate that with New Year's resolutions and reflection on the end of the year too. But the 7 principles: unity, self-determination, cooperative economics, collective responsibility. That's about working together. Then you have purpose, creativity, and faith. Well, my eyes are burning.
Oh,
All of those are the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And if you live and practice them, then you will be successful. Hold on, I got to get something to wipe my face. There's something right here.
Right.
My eyes burn. I'm sorry.
no problem. No problem at all. She's also has a audio book that's available on
All
her.
about Kwanzaa.
All about Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
You're talking about your audio.
It's a CD.
The CD, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Available on her
And
by way of her
there's a
author's
song.
page. And is it all singing, or is it just talking too?
Well, the project started with the song. The name of the song is Happy Kwanzaa, Everybody. The purpose is to teach the 7 principles. At that time, we were all learning. You sing the song Happy Kwanzaa, Everybody. It talks about the founder and the 7 principles and what they mean. Like in one word, I did like Swahili, English, translations like that. So when people ask the meaning of Kwanzaa, once my sister started singing it, self-determination. She was able, because she was reflecting on the song.
Cool.
And so that's the purpose of the song.
Is that the meaning of Kwanzaa? Self-determination?
No. Kwanzaa is the African American holiday.
I know that, but I mean, does the
but
word Kwanzaa have a definition?
It's linking the legacy, the history of Africa to African Americans. So we're celebrating the relationship, the history, the cultural traditions of Africa and African Americans, and making a link together. So that's what it's really about. That's why they like the 7 principles. It's based on in Africa, they have a first fruits celebration. So Dr. King created and I say that in the very first sentence, Kwanzaa is created in 1966 by Dr. Karenga, celebrated from the 26th of December through January, and is based on the agricultural celebrations of Kwanzaa. He created it to introduce and reinforce 7 principles. That was that's the whole core of Kwanzaa. It's a way of life. That's the way that's what it is. It's the way of life that entails the 7 principles. If you teach and practice the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, then you're going to do good. He talks about the importance of doing good in the world and making the world more beautiful than the way we inherited it. That's what the concept is.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. We need to do that, especially now.
Yes.
We're just so challenged.
Yes, but we can do it.
Right. Yeah.
We can do it by respecting each other, listening to each other, learning from each other, loving each other, no matter where we are.
Yep.
Yeah. Embracing all of the beliefs and everybody's point of view, taking
not being judgmental. I think not being judgmental, because even if we don't agree with something,
you don't have to.
Right. We could think it's right, we could think it's wrong, but that doesn't mean that we can't be respectful.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole thing. You don't have to agree with everything or everybody, but don't be judgmental. Don't be thinking that you're here and they're there, or you have a right to, know what?
That never works, because either you're going to come out on top and you're going to become self-inflated and overimportant and not good, or you're going to come out on bottom when you're thinking about other people. And that's not good either, because then you're going to feel badly about yourself and feel downcast. And so, each one of us has our own race to run, and we run it against ourselves. And I really believe in respect. I don't feel like I need to proselytize anyone to believe
Mhm.
the way that I do. And I respect the way everybody else believes or thinks. And I want to hear things. If we will talk with each other and listen, if you listen without a prejudgment,
Exactly.
you might learn things. You might surprise yourself
Right.
what you can learn.
I really like how you said that your race is against yourself. Your competition is yourself.
Yeah.
Your judgment is against you yourself, not against other people, but you should, look at, and I think that's what I like about Kwanzaa. It encourages you to be introspective, reflective, to set goals, to analyze, to be creative, all the things that will make you more successful, or more likely to attain things that you want to attain. So that's what I like about Kwanzaa.
I have to be honest and say that it was the Apostle Paul that said that about racing against yourself. But I'm glad that you made me sound very rude.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, philosophers have said something similar. Like even the basketball player once was saying you're something about shooting 1,000 baskets and missing most of them. You competing against yourself. I get but it's really a great basic validation of we are who we are.
Another thing also from that same book is that if you look at all of your failures as a stone in a memorial and you pile them up, it's from there that you can learn and that you can succeed.
Exactly.
You can't win without failing first.
Yeah. You don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And see, that's why she wrote this book about Dr. Martin Luther King, so people would know.
So that history doesn't change.
Been
right.
History can't be changed that way.
Right.
And I want them to understand the difference between a womanizer and a gentleman. In the book, on page 67, I wrote one paragraph length vignettes. Can I read one? And
yes.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. This is called Love Story Number 1. Luther tried. Oh, that's another thing. Luther was my grandfather's name and my father's middle name. And I dedicate this book to my father because he always said, I don't care how many degrees you got, there is no substitute for common sense. He used to always say that, and I never forgot it. So anyway, I dedicated this book, the whole book, to him because he inspired me to use common sense. So I named my character in the vignettes Luther, and there are 8 different scenarios of Luther's having an encounter with 8 different women. So the first one, it says Luther. That's the second one. Luther tried to ignore the attention of beautiful, charming, well-dressed women who approached him regularly. They offered him congratulations. They flirted and requested to meet with him. They offered their help. His intent was to platonically enjoy and utilize their interest and support for community causes. At the Black Unity meeting, Luther smiled at Loretta, and when they were within 5 feet of each other, it seemed as if a magnet brought them together. They hugged. She kissed his cheek and ear, then encouraged him with a gentle pat on the back. He closed his eyes for a second and then let Loretta go. Stepped back, smiled, and thanked her for helping out. Ray watched enviously. That's all. That's one.
Very
good. And it's the point is Ray is watching. Now Ray is perceiving this differently. There's another instance in the book where a woman goes and knocks on Luther's door, and he opens the door and lets her in his room, and they start talking, and then he tells her he's tired, he has to get up early, and she gets up to leave. And as she is leaving, Ray is coming down the hall and sees her leaving. Again, another conclusion that he's drawn based on what he probably would have been doing in that room. But so I have 8 vignettes in here. Then I have a game. It's called Womanizer and the Gentleman, the game. Then I have some short paragraphs, and you have to put a W if this person is a womanizer, a G if it's a gentleman, you know. And by the time you finish the book, you should understand the difference between a womanizer and a gentleman, and be able to adamantly conclude that Dr. King could not have been a womanizer.
Right, right. That's
I
cool.
think maybe the millennials have, you know, they've seen the Me Too movement, and which is all valid and all very real and very important. But when that's all you hear and see, I think you're kind of willing to take up that banner and say, aha, you know.
And I even, when I read the book by a woman that hinted, she never said she had an affair with Dr. King. People talk about this woman all the time. She was a politician. She loved Dr. King. She wanted to be with Dr. King. I read her book, and throughout her whole book, I saw exactly what kind of woman she was. She was beautiful. Coretta was beautiful, but she wasn't Coretta. She wasn't educated like Coretta. And the reason why I'm making this comparison is because I think this woman wanted to be with him so much. In her head, she was capable of taking him from his wife. She felt, so if you read her whole book, not once does she say that she had an intimate relationship. The book is mostly about her hanging with Dr. King's brother and Dr. King's brother's girlfriend. Now, you know, and then you got her. So in her head, she's his whatever, you know, how when they're couples. But in the book, most of the time, he would just be telling them he's not coming to meet with them. And what she wanted to meet with him and be with him, but he was always not available. And then the one night, I read Death of a King. And after doing all the research I've done, and I had already read the book written by the woman that they claim allegedly had an affair with Dr. King. And in my head, I concluded she never said that. So it didn't happen. She talked about who she slept with in that book, clear and without any question, you knew. But when it came to talking about Dr. King, she would say things like, he said, I hope you're keeping the men off of you, you know, I think just joking and playing with her like that, you know. So I never got that. And so there was, at the end, the night before Dr. King got killed, he was in the room with this woman that I'm referring to. Now, when he got there, he was tired. And according to Tavis Smiley's book, he had been drinking. You know, he was troubled. He was drinking vodka and orange juice. I believe that. He got there, went to the hotel. Now, all the men liked this other woman, too. She was beautiful. She had eyes on her. And so Jesse Jackson, all of the other one, the Abernathy, all of them, waiting to speak to him. And they kind of overwhelmed Dr. King. We shouldn't focus on the war because President Johnson is going to be mad at us. We need to focus on this, on economics. We need to they were going all these different directions. But a lot of stuff had already been changed because of Dr. King. So now it was, where do we go from here? He wrote the book. Where do we go from here? And in that era of where do we go from here, all of his partners as Black leaders and stuff, they all telling him we should do this, we should do that. So this woman shows up and everybody looks at her. And I believe that Dr. King probably wanted them to think that he may have wanted them to think that something was going to happen. Or if you ever want to get away from a man, say 2 men are together or 5 men and they all hanging out and they all, yeah, let's go here, let's do this. One way that is surely gets you away from them is if you tell them you got a date or you got something else to do and it involves a woman. That's a way to get away from, and I started thinking, it had to be, don't you see what I'm saying? It's a way,
I can see what you're saying.
Right. You tell them, you got the or, shut them all out. And then when you go to your room and she comes and knocks whatever, let her in. But she never said that anything really happened. She said Dr. King was passionate. Well, I didn't even read her book, and I got that written in my book. Dr. King was passionate about civil rights. He was passionate. I'm passionate. And if you read her book, you learn about her. You know that if something had happened, she would have made sure that we knew. I don't think anything happened. And if it did, it would have only been one time. But I don't think anything happened. And another reason why I don't think anything happened, because in her book, she said that the day after Dr. King died, she went to Coretta Scott King's house to express her condolences. I don't think she would have done that if something had happened. She wouldn't have been able to face her. And she never said it. So anyway, that's my take.
Yeah.
The most important is she never said it.
Yeah.
But she did name names. She named names, but not
everything
that
else.
name.
But
So.
She told you all kinds. She told you everything about her. She told you how this guy was so in love with her that she slept with the guy and she had a relationship, but she wanted to break up with him. So she told her husband, she was a cheater. She told her husband that she wanted to move closer to her mom and dad. And they moved, but she said, that's the only way I could get away from him. He was so obsessed and in love with me. I'm like, okay, I know what kind of woman you are.
Well, we're kind of winding down on the time here.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Yeah, my battery's about to die.
Do you have any projects in the works at this point, or?
Yes, teachers' guidelines are coming up for Happy Kwanzaa, everybody.
Okay.
Teachers' guidelines, which are going to be helpful, and it'll explain why every student should have their own book. And I also have a book coming up called Spoken Love Songs. This is one. And it basically is poetry. And it talks about like why love matters. Why is love important? Love songs.
Okay, well, everybody should contact you.
Playground Blues. Yeah,
on
Playground
your
Blues.
link that we've got on the show here, and get a hold of some of your books. And your poetry is beautiful. You did a great job on that. And Womanizer looks like a very interesting story, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you'd like to add? Or?
Nope, I think I'm all talked out. I've talked a lot tonight.
There you go.
I talk a lot every show, so.
All right. Well,
I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I appreciate this dialogue from the bottom of my heart. Thank you both.
We appreciate you joining us. We really do. It's been
you're
wonderful
very
meeting
welcome.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's wonderful meeting you.
Going to move you over to the side, so hold on. Whoop. That didn't hurt, I hope. Okay, we got you over there.
Okay.
Anything you want to add?
No.
No. Going to tune in next week where we'll have Aiken Chang Lim, award-winning romance and inspirational author on. That's October 19th, 7 o'clock, right here where you're at. And we'll go ahead and until next time.
Well, I do want to remind people to subscribe to our YouTube.
YouTube, yes. We need YouTube subscribers. So go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You'll get notifications.
What's the name of our YouTube?
Indie Book Source.
Indie Book Source.
There you go.
Go to Indie Book Source and subscribe. We're very low on subscribers.
Yes, and indiebooksource.com. You can find everything and all the links you've got to get to everywhere. Find the podcast, all the old podcasts, all the past podcasts are all there. You can listen to them there, or you can watch.
Or you can watch the podcast.
The link to
all the podcasts.
YouTube is there. So
okay, now I'm done.
Until then, until next time.
That's all, folks.
That's it. Good night.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.